No parent should have to think that's the best they can do for their child. There is a way out.
You're stronger than you think you are.
So often they know the person that needs something.
Everybody can do something.
Coming up with a view of it right there.
When we're walking in, we look around, we take everything in.
There was a gunshot trauma that happened.
It stops you. Well, it's certainly not something that you do every day.
Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us.
I know that God saved my voice for me to deliver this message.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Wendy Ryan.
And I'm Lisa Campos. Thank you so much for joining us for our special broadcast, Taking Action Against Domestic Violence. Tonight, we are celebrating Everyday Heroes.
Over the last 9 years, we've had the honor of telling survivor stories and seeing so many people get involved in this important issue because they care.
You have really shown us that each of us can do something to make a difference, that no matter how small it may seem, it has a lasting ripple effect. So this is your special as much as it is ours.
And right now, we're streaming live on our Facebook page, the homepage of our website, as well as right here on air.
And joining us with this message across our media platforms are colleagues Jamison Euler and Dia Riley.
Lizette, tonight we're proud to reveal the recipient of our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Officer of the Year Award. And I had the privilege of getting to know him. This award is our way of acknowledging the risk police and deputies take each time they respond to a DV call. It also gives survivors a chance to say thank you to these extraordinary people who become their heroes. Tonight, I'll show you how one local officer made a positive impact almost a decade after a DV case he never forgot.
And when police and deputies respond to DV calls, right there with them are first responders. I got a chance to ride along with EMTs and got to see firsthand how they use their special training to always be on the lookout for hidden signs of abuse.
And all throughout this next hour, we'll be showing you this, the statewide domestic violence hotline. It will constantly be at the bottom of your screen. This number connects you to domestic violence centers throughout Florida, any time of day, any day of the year. And callers can remain anonymous. That number, 1-800-500-1119.
New this year is an intensified focus on the wheel of power and control. This one tool is helping people across the country understand that DV has many layers in addition to the physical aspects of abuse. And someone who understands that is Pinellas County Commissioner Pat Gerard. Long before her career in public office, she led one of the Bay Area's state-certified domestic violence centers. And when she explains the wheel, the hidden signs of abuse become crystal clear.
It's a wheel being used in all 50 states since the 1980s, the wheel of power and control. Each piece exposes the invisible layers of domestic violence. Here at ABC Action News, we've been using this wheel for 9 years.
I just sat there and cried.
Weaving it into the fabric of our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence campaign.
I would have rather him punch me in the face than to have said the things to me that he said.
It's produced years of emails, notes, and phone calls.
Maybe you're not such a victim after all.
All telling the story of viewers who didn't believe they were victims until they saw the wheel.
It was my daughter that made me leave.
Pinellas County Commissioner Pat Gerard knows it well. Her seat on the dais preceded by years of domestic violence cases dating back to 1984. As the victim's advocate for the Largo Police Department, then for almost a decade, leading The Haven, the state-certified domestic violence center serving northern Pinellas.
People have a lot of sympathy for a family whose house burns down, you know, but it's the same thing when a survivor leaves that situation. She starts with nothing.
With a career in human services spanning 38 years, Pat has perspective, one that makes the invisible visible to her.
I've seen survivors from all walks of life, and you can't tell any more than you can tell by looking at the abuser, whether he's an abuser or not.
And she should know. The city of Largo's first female mayor was first a victim of domestic violence.
Wow. I don't say that very often, but
40 years after her first exposure to the wheel of power and control, it still stings.
I was so shocked the first time it happened.
Her sweetheart was 19 in the Navy. She was 16 in high school. Their courtship moved quickly, as most domestic violence romances do. The first signs of abuse coming after the wedding, she says.
He was probably as shocked as I was, and apologized profusely. I'll never do that again. I love you.
Like many victims, she left him several times and came back. The makeup's long enough for Pat to earn a high school equivalency, her GED, and start junior college. It was freedom with limits.
I signed up for a class at SPC, which was JC back then, and he signed up for the same class and sat next to me in every class.
And even now, she is surprised by how closely her marriage followed the pattern of power and control. The wheel was a perfect fit.
He was always putting me down or, doing things like when we'd be walking somewhere together, he'd walk 5 feet in front of me. Financial, well, he never worked. Off and on, he'd work for a few weeks at a time. There was a time when I thought, sure, he was going to kill me, that he was just that out of control. We actually had a dog, too, at the time, and he used to abuse the dog, which was almost worse. If I was happy, that was not good, because I must be happy about something else. If I was angry, what are you so mad about? I'll give you something to be mad about. My ex used to drop me off at work in the morning and pick me up in the afternoon. I didn't see my family all that much, and I didn't have any friends. He finally agreed to go to a marriage counselor, and the counselor said, so what do you not like about the other person? And my things were, well, he never says anything nice to me. He's always, insulting me, and he hits me, and my ex-husband said, she doesn't shave the back of her legs. That's exactly what the counselor did. He went, oh my God, you are totally out of it.
For 10 years, their life together filled every slice of the wheel, save one, motherhood. At age 26, she started over, divorced without hope of ever being a mom. But Pat would find her happily ever after with husband Eric, married 32 years now, and their daughter Sarah. The Pat of today is a survivor, wife, mother, leader, county commissioner, the chief grants officer for a local nonprofit. But on this day, she wants to be just one thing, a messenger.
Just know that millions of people have gone through the same thing, and your life can be totally different than it is right now. I think my main message is you're stronger than you think you are. You have what it takes. You just need to have some faith in yourself.
And on behalf of the entire team here at ABC Action News, we want to publicly thank Commissioner Girard for courageously sharing her story, her full story. She is hoping that it will help victims watching tonight take the first steps towards becoming survivors. We've placed that interactive version of the Wheel of Power and Control on our website. The wheel is also on our social media platforms. It's there to help you, so please consider sharing it. You may not need it now, but someday you or someone you care about may. From start to finish, during tonight's broadcast, we're giving you a closer look at each of the 8 sections in the Wheel of Power and Control. Wendy?
Well, I've worked on this campaign for 9 years now, and just when I thought I'd seen it all, my own little dog helped me see something new. For the very first time, I did my story with some help from little Angel Cake. She makes it easy to understand why domestic violence experts believe heroes making a positive difference in the lives of victims are not always human.
Hello! I met Julie Scott for the first time in a local dog park as we shared our love for our 4-legged family members. Her 85-pound Labradoodle, George.
Well, they look like they're almost related, right? It's like the same color.
And my 6-pound Morkie named Angel Cake. They became fast friends.
Can you say hi to George? Can you give him a kiss?
George is no ordinary dog. He's a therapy dog, a nationally recognized one, named Distinguished Therapy Dog in 2017 by the American Kennel Club, because George has made more than 400 therapy dog visits to date, a passion that started with his human.
While I was attorney and practicing full-time in Judge Tepper's court with children and families that were affected by violence every day, I used to sit in court and think, oh, how great it would be if I could just have my dog in here, and how much comfort he would bring, not only to me, because it was a lot of comfort for me, but to everybody else that was there.
This bold idea captured her imagination early in her career and never let go. Julie brought it to life when she semi-retired.
Something I'd always dreamed about doing was to be able to have a dog that I could do therapy work with.
One specially trained to comfort domestic violence victims in the courtroom. At the Robert Sumner Judicial Center, the former police officer and Orlando detective joined forces with Judge Lynn Tepper. They started the program in 2011, Dade City Dogs in Court.
She had an idea. She was brave enough to bring it to you, and you said yes.
Yes, and it's been wonderful. It's a highly charged environment. It helps in many ways.
The four-legged heroes help victims feel safe enough to share from their heart. Experts say kids are often too scared to speak. Remembering, testifying in open court becomes possible with a therapy dog in touching distance. Young victims begin to share, visibly comforted by the unconditional love the animal provides.
I'm Tracy, this is Cash.
Everybody sit up.
Hi, I'm Debbie, and this is Cashew. I'm Gail, and this is Benjamin. I'm Debbie, and this is Sadie.
I'm Helen, and this is Pooter.
I'm Julie, this is George.
And I'm Ellen, and this is Little Bit.
I'm Marianne, and this is Dumpy.
6 years into the program, George has super friends. Little Bit is the smallest, less than 10 pounds. The therapy dogs and their handlers volunteer in Judge Tepper's courtroom every Wednesday. They work pro bono.
There you go.
Well, if you don't count the cookies, hero food from the judge's assistant, Connie Ashmore.
As soon as a child or even an adult demonstrates some stress or some anxiety, if you take the dog over to them, they're pretty receptive to that, and it immediately causes them to disengage kind of from the difficulties that are going on in the courtroom and focus in on the dog. And you can see it just start to calm down.
They sense stress, they sense sadness. They know so often, they know the person that needs something, that they need some comfort, they just need that touch.
These 13 super dogs aren't just relying on their good looks to get the job done. They get a year of instruction from a therapy dog trainer before setting one paw in court. Cashew and Rascal's mom, Debbie Mims, created that protocol, drawing on her experience on the Tampa police force. In this lineup, there's no top dog. Each one, from the biggest to the smallest, has equal weight in court.
So when people start to pet a dog, it's amazing to see, they truly start to calm down, their blood pressure goes down, there's research, but they start to talk. It's terrifying for a child to get up on the witness stand and have to talk, even if their parent isn't there, to talk about what's happened. I mean, the most intimate details of your life.
Sitting with us in her chamber after a long day, Judge Tepper recalls one particular case, a young boy who testified against his own cousin. That little boy struggling to find words until the therapy dog sat beside him.
What a difference it made for that child to have that dog right there, being able to pet the dog throughout the testimony. And it was very tough testimony. This was a very young child. He was under 8 years of age and had to relive all of that.
Slowly, the words, the truth, came out. A scene repeated for 6 years, every Wednesday, with the help from four-legged heroes.
Good job today. Good work, Georgie.
The connection between animal cruelty and domestic violence is something that keeps many victims from leaving an abusive situation. The Sunrise of Pasco Domestic Violence Center is now teaming up with Pasco Animal Services to remove that last obstacle keeping victims trapped. They shelter survivors' pets in their facility and also find temporary homes for the animals. This way, the survivor can get out without any worry about leaving their pet behind in the hands of the abuser. It's just one more example of how everyone has something they can give to help break the cycle of domestic violence.
And this adorable face is also raising awareness of the strong link between domestic violence and animal cruelty. Darby has become the mascot for the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence, traveling the state with advocates for presentations and events. Most audiences are surprised to learn just how often abusers hurt animals too, using a victim's bond with the family pet to control them, threatening to kill the pet if the victim abandons the relationship. Experts estimate that between 25 and 40% of victims delay leaving if they can't take the animal with them, terrified for that pet's safety. Now, in addition to the awareness piece, Darby helps to raise money for DV shelters, specifically helping more shelters build kennels and create partnerships with local veterinarians and animal services. The goal here, again, is to remove one more barrier that keeps victims in violent relationships. And advocates tell us that this gorgeous little dog is helping them in a way that no human advocate could.
That's right. Darby is a four-legged hero, just like George, and you'll see even more proof of the power of giving throughout the next hour.
Still ahead, a familiar face to so many of you. We've spent the last 5 years watching Melissa Dome heal from one of the worst cases of domestic violence the Bay Area has ever seen.
They saw from the x-ray a puncture wound in my voice box. So they did not know, am I ever going to speak again? And is my voice ever going to be there? They actually did not have hope.
And just when you thought you knew her entire story, Melissa will surprise you. The defining moment in her life, and it is not what you think.
And Lee said, from Melissa Dome to the first responders inspired by her resilience, the special training that's making the invisible visible to EMTs on the front lines.
And it's a 7-year tradition and going strong. This time an entire school surprising our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Officer of the Year. How he changed a DV survivor's life years after rushing to the crime scene.
There are so many ways to raise community awareness. Before we go to break, here's the view from more than 520 feet up in the air. In downtown Tampa, the folks at the SunTrust Tower turning its famous lights a lovely shade of purple, taking action against domestic violence. We'll be right back.
The Wheel of Power and Control was developed by scientists in Duluth, Minnesota some 40 years ago. Divided into 8 equal parts, it shows the hidden layers of domestic violence, beginning with a sense of privilege, then economic abuse, threats, that include suicide, intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, and minimizing concerns or deflecting blame. And in cases with children, custody is commonly used as a weapon. To see more of the Wheel of Power and Control, visit abcactionnews.com/DV.
Hello, I'm Lisette Fernandez, and I'm proud to say I'm an Allstate insurance agent. At Allstate, we're committed to ending domestic violence. It's the leading cause of injury to women ages 18 to 44, and 1 in 4 women will become victims. Those statistics are unacceptable. At Allstate, we started a movement, the Purple Purse, to end domestic violence through financial empowerment. We focus on financial abuse because it's the #1 reason why victims stay. Our Purple Purse delivers financial empowerment to victims directly and ignites fundraising for domestic violence organizations all over the country. When people think of domestic violence, they think of the physical abuse, but there are so many more layers to domestic violence. Financial abuse is present in 99% of all cases. Learn all the warning signs. Visit purplepurse.com for more.
23 deaths and more than 17,000 acts of violence. That's how many domestic violence cases were reported last year in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Polk alone. A common thread in all of them is the pattern of behavior outlined in the Wheel of Power and Control. The most prevalent, yet overlooked, is isolation. For starters, a victim's personal relationships with friends and family are tightly controlled. To see the wheel in detail, visit abcactionnews.com/DV.
Welcome back. You're watching Taking Action Against Domestic Violence.
Every hour in the U.S., about 1,100 people fall victim to domestic violence. But right now, our local domestic violence centers are standing by to help.
And we want to show you some of what they have to offer. I want you to take a look behind me. Their services really run the gamut, from counseling to legal help to safety planning and child care and so much more. And now I want you to take a look at this map. A dozen domestic violence centers all throughout the Bay Area are standing by to help right now, no matter where you live. Again, these places are not just emergency shelters. They're full-service centers that include outreach and prevention work in local schools. To find the one nearest you, we've posted a county-by-county listing on our website. Just head over to abcactionnews.com/DV. And one simple phone number connects to all of them, the statewide domestic violence hotline, and that number, 1-800-500-1119. Your call will be routed to the center closest to you. We'll show it to you again at the bottom of your screen throughout our broadcast. Again, it's also posted on all of our social media platforms. And now to this story in the sports world. One of the Bay Area's biggest names in sports, proving that a simple idea can have a real impact in the battle against domestic violence. The Tampa Bay Rays have partnered with CASA in Pinellas County to install domestic violence awareness signs in all of their bathrooms at Tropicana Field. They are the only Major League Baseball team that we know of that's made this kind of commitment. The signs encourage victims to reach out for help and provides the domestic violence hotline. We found this note in one stall written by a survivor of 20 years saying, quote, "Amen, the best call I ever made."
And across the Skyway Bridge, take a look at a group making a difference in Manatee County. Advocates call them Angels at Work. About 30 people from the same neighborhood in Ellenton basically adopting the shelter at Hope Family Services. The Angels work all year to help the families staying in the shelter. In the spring, the Angels provide Easter meals, and then in August, they donate school supplies for the children at the shelter. In November, they provide Thanksgiving dinner for the families, and at Christmas, well, that's when they shower the kids with toys. The need is great and it's growing at all the centers. In fact, the CDC classifies domestic violence as a public health crisis, affecting 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men in this country. So it's no surprise that our DV centers are actively engaging folks in the health industry to recognize the hidden signs of abuse to help prevent future cases. And for that side of the story, we bring in Dia Riley, who's standing by.
Emily said emergency rooms aren't the only places where victims of domestic violence end up. I got to ride along with first responders who have become advocates on the front lines in the fight against domestic violence.
All right, 68-year-old male, chest pain, cold clammy sweats. Rescue 3 on Gulf. You are clear, right?
It's only the second call of their shift.
Brandon, here comes your cardiac arrest, buddy.
It's a life or death situation.
That's all we have is just life status questionable.
Brandon, you got the stretcher.
Hearts racing, adrenaline pumping. It's all in a day's work for Sunstar paramedic Casey Raz and EMT Aaron Dill. Just before this call, a life and death situation of another kind. This one with the SWAT team in St. Pete.
Dispatch just advised me that there was a gunshot trauma that happened not too far from here. Boyfriend shot female and ran off.
The victim, Melinda Soria, a mother of 2, died before Sunstar ever left its hub.
It's not always about the dramatic saving life and shocking and stopping the bleeding. More often it's, hey, you know, there's this resource, or there's you know, these ways to make your life better.
Unlike the dramatic scenes you see on TV, first responders save lives in the quiet moments, too. Asking questions, sharing resources that can set someone on a new path. They couldn't save Melinda, but there are countless others like her they will help before it's too late. All thanks to a unique 4-year partnership with CASA, the state-certified domestic violence center serving St. Pete and Southern Pinellas.
We used to sponsor Susan G. Komen, and we found that our employees didn't really relate to breast cancer as much because we didn't really treat breast cancer here at Sunstar.
First responders were searching for a new charity to inspire and mobilize their crews. They didn't have to look very far. Around 3 a.m. on January 24th, 2012, the cause found them. It came in the form of a call. The emergency? A woman stabbed 32 times. The culprit? Her high school sweetheart.
They really helped her and kept her alive during that time. According to Melissa, she felt that without them, she was fading away.
This might be something you can look for to recognize.
The victim? Melissa Dome, now the Bay Area's most vocal domestic violence survivor turned advocate.
This whole partnership came about because of our relationship with Melissa Dome.
Paramedics did more than help save her the morning of the attack. They followed her recovery for months and then years. Born out of tragedy, this partnership now saving lives.
First responders are the key to whether somebody is going to be able to walk away from that situation or find themselves lost and going back into it. When you call an ambulance to the house, now we're getting to a place where you cannot ignore the fact that this is a violent situation and you need help.
Sunstar's crews are trained to recognize signs of abuse, silent ones they might have missed before the training with DV advocates.
If you read body language, you start to learn on how to pay attention to the minor details, and you can kind of read people and their body language and kind of see what they're saying, even just little gestures they can do with their face or their eyes.
You're taught to really take in the whole environment. We're lucky that we can actually see everything around us, unlike the hospital or the doctors and the nurses. When the patient gets to them, all they see is them, the injuries. I can see, the drugs sitting on the table, or the disarray that the house is in, or the behavior of the family that's in that home, as opposed to somebody in the hospital that doesn't get to see the whole picture.
And they're also trained to be patient.
Most people think, you have to leave right now, and it could be a life or death situation if they don't leave that day. But I couldn't imagine picking up my whole life and just leaving that day. A lot of times they're not ready for that, and I don't blame them. So being able to leave resources with them, or a discreet message to let them know, hey, there's help when you're ready, when you can line things up, hopefully they make it to that day.
That's why it's important to train first responders like the Sunstar paramedics, because when they come there, this may be their 3rd or 4th time coming there. Somebody who's not trained is going to be frustrated, they're going to be angry, and they're going to be professional, but there's going to be a little edge to them. When that person's been trained and they know it could be up to 6 or 7 times before this person leaves, they're going to come with the same amount of compassion they had the first time out.
And that first of its kind training is changing the way they respond to every single call.
Abuse comes in all sizes, shapes, colors, rich, poor.
There's no socioeconomic, there's no line that's there. It can be from one end of the spectrum to the next.
Tell somebody. Silence is the friendship of domestic violence.
Sunstar and CASA have seen it all over the years and want to speak from the heart to victims watching right now.
There is nothing in that house other than you and your children that can't be replaced.
They don't have to live that way. They don't deserve to live that way. That there's help out there, that there's ways to change their life, and that they can be happy.
Wish it wasn't so hard for them to make that first step.
It's probably scary.
Sunstar 333-333, respond to.
And with that, they're off on another mission to help before it's too late.
And that's really how it is inside the ambulance. If you need proof of why this training is so impactful, just last year, in just the city of St. Pete, which is Sunstar's main service area, there were more than 2,500 reported cases of domestic violence. With more companies learning about this issue and partnering with local DV centers, we can all make a difference. Another group that really understands that are the Doctors of Tomorrow at the University of South Florida. They are part of the Morsani College of Medicine. The name of the student group is USF Esteem. They volunteer their time with the Spring of Tampa Bay to raise awareness of domestic violence within the college community. And they also talk to fellow medical students about how best to serve patients affected by domestic violence. Now to Jameson Euler introducing us to another hero making an impact. Jameson?
Dia, every year we honor a deserving member of law enforcement with our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Officer of the Year award, an honor given to an officer who goes above and beyond to help in the fight against domestic violence. This year, for the first time, the award goes to a deputy from Pinellas County who never gave up protecting a domestic violence victim and her son, who he met more than 7 years ago. But before we introduce this story, some images in it are very raw and real, and we've decided not to filter them. For the past 5 years, Pinellas County Deputy James Walker has been a school resource officer.
There's two of us here at Dunedin High.
A place we met Deputy Walker earlier this month as students filled the auditorium to hear about the dangers of teen dating violence. As Walker sat in the audience, he had no idea why we called him to the front of the room. But this year we are going to give it to you, Deputy James Walker, our 2017 Officer of the Year award. Thank you so much for everything that you've done for us, you've done for Jessica. How Deputy Walker got to this moment.
Where is everybody?
You have to rewind 7 years to May of 2010.
1/5.
Deputy James Walker was on street patrol.
You're a female screaming.
A call came across his radio. It was an assault in the parking lot of a Tarpon Springs 7-Eleven.
It was bloody. Visually, it was very, very bloody.
As Deputy Walker pulled in, he was not ready for what he was about to see. An SUV.
There's blood inside the car. There's blood outside the car. There was a trail of blood going inside the 7-Eleven there.
He followed the blood trail inside. Beaten and unrecognizable was a woman on the floor, Jessica Mullins. Her teeth knocked out, her jaw and nose broken, both eyes swollen shut, her right eye detached and falling out of the socket.
I've seen stabbings, I've seen whatever, and hers were some of the most gruesome injuries that I've seen.
These crime scene photos show what Walker found when he ran back outside: a bloody infant car seat and a Good Samaritan holding Jessica's 18-month-old son Aiden, covered in his mother's blood.
I always carry like wet wipes basically with me. We started to clean them up.
The attacker, identified from this surveillance video as Thomas Kovach, Jessica's ex and Aiden's father. As the beating starts outside, you can see customers start to turn toward the commotion. Jessica's car alarm going off. And as her beating continues, a witness steps in to try to stop Kovach, who is ordered by the court to stay away from Jessica. But on this day, a piece of paper would not stop his attempt to murder the woman who left him 1 month earlier.
I remember being choked. I remember losing consciousness.
This surveillance video from inside the 7-Eleven obscures some of the worst things Jessica doesn't remember that day. But the crime scene photos are brutally clear. Kovach ambushing her from behind in the parking lot and beating her with merciless and repeated punches and kicks. Jessica placed her limp body over little Aiden in his car seat to protect him.
She apparently lost consciousness and actually fell onto the ground, and he was slamming the car door on her head.
Kovach fled. Little Aiden was safe and unharmed. But Jessica Mullins would not be so lucky. She was fighting for her life after being airlifted to the hospital. Deputy Walker immediately put out a call to hunt Kovach down. 1 day later, they found him. Almost 1 year later, he would be sentenced to 15 years in prison for second-degree attempted murder. Jessica would live, but undergo multiple surgeries to correct major damage from the beating. She also lost her right eye.
6 years had passed since the incident in this convenience store parking lot. Jessica's life and Deputy Walker's life had moved on, as they so often do, and little Aiden was now growing up. It wasn't until the fall of 2016 that Jessica got a phone call that Kovach, still in prison, wanted visitation rights for his estranged son who almost saw his mother die here that day. Might sound like an odd request, but it is one that is sometimes granted. And that's when Jessica knew if she could somehow locate Deputy Walker after all these years, maybe he could save her yet again.
Desperate, Jessica and her mom dug through piles of paperwork. Under the dust, they found Deputy Walker's phone number scribbled down within a stack of notes.
Which I was surprised she still had my department phone number all these years later.
He was speechless when I had called him. He says, "You're not going to believe this." He says, "Your file's sitting right on my desk right now in front of me."
Odd how fate works sometimes.
Every now and then, periodically, our property and evidence section will reach out, can we get rid of this stuff or do we still need to keep it?
A request they asked Deputy Walker almost every year since the case had closed, but for some reason he says he kept hanging on to it. The images of Jessica and that bloody little infant boy couldn't get out of his head. So he thought how odd it was on the day Jessica called 7 years later, he was about to finally sign off to get rid of her file for good. That's why it was right there in front of him when she called.
He answered right away. He says, "Absolutely, and how's Aiden doing?"
Jessica knew if Deputy Walker could bring that file with him to court with all his notes and all those crime scene photos from that day and testify to what he saw, then maybe the judge would see Kovach should never be allowed near little Aiden.
They asked me some basic questions about what I remembered, what I saw.
Jessica says it was more than basic.
He went into court and testified for us, saying that he didn't think that it was a good idea, and based on his opinion of when he was at the crime scene and he seen myself and he seen Aiden and he knew all the details of what had happened of the attack.
The judge heard days of testimony, finally ruling not only would Kovach not be allowed to see his son from prison, but that his parental rights were now terminated forever.
I don't believe we would have got the termination of parental rights. That was a really big impact on the case and to the judge.
That he showed up that day.
Right, that he showed up that day and testified what he had seen.
The haunting image of little Aiden on that day finally put to rest, replaced with this.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you recognize this guy?
Sorta, kinda. What's up, buddy? How are you?
He was kind of little when you seen him
He
last.
was about that big.
On the morning we were surprising Deputy Walker with his Officer of the Year award, we first surprised him with Aiden. Standing before Deputy Walker, Aiden, now 8 years old, and his mother. 2 lives changed. 2 lives that now live in peace.
So my name is Jessica. I'm a victim and a survivor of domestic violence, second-degree attempted murder.
And a chance for a survivor of domestic violence to bravely tell her story about the day Deputy James Walker came into her life.
He's stuck with our family and now it's kind of become, I call it part of our family, because he's been with us the whole time.
And Jessica says she hopes her story will inspire lawmakers in Tallahassee to pass a law that would automatically strip a parent of their parental rights in a domestic violence case, ending with a conviction on murder or attempted murder charges. We also want to recognize another hero who's made an impact on Jessica's life. Rinki Parwani is a lawyer who's donated more than 50 hours of legal services to Jessica's case. She was by her side in court the entire time, and earlier this year, the Bar Association recognized Ms. Parwani for her pro bono work that continues as she prepares the appeal in this case. Today, Jessica is happily married, and little Aiden is growing up in a happy and safe home.
Thank you, Jameson. We first started honoring law enforcement with our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Officer of the Year award back in 2011. And since then, it's continued to expand in its reach. We now receive nominations from all of our counties in the Bay Area, recognizing a first responder outside of Hillsborough County for the very first time just last year. In fact, that honor went to the Chief of Police in Newport Richey. Our other past recipients include Hillsborough County deputies and Plant City police officers.
He was the firefighter that set up the landing zone for the helicopter and helped load me into it. And it's truly our real life love story.
It is the love story that's captivated the nation. Domestic violence survivor Melissa Dome marrying the paramedic who responded to the crime scene. In my one-on-one interview, she tells us about her mission to help others and how a farm filled with animals may be part of her plan.
Plus, putting their creativity to work, the way an entire company here in Tampa Bay became accidental advocates for domestic violence awareness. And awareness comes in many forms. Before we go to break, here's another look at the downtown skyline glowing in purple. And here's the view of the lights above the Regions building in Tampa, a great shade of purple, 579 feet up in the air during National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We'll be right back.
3,600 cases of domestic violence were reported in Pasco last year. In Manatee and Sarasota, that total was almost 4,000. A closer look at the wheel of power and control reveals what kept many of those victims trapped: financial dependence imposed by the abuser, threats against family or friends, even threats of suicide, and in a growing number of cases, intimidation included abuse of the family pet. To see the wheel in detail, visit abcactionnews.com/DV.
I'm Glenn Brogna, Verizon's Director of Retail Sales for North Florida, including Tampa Bay. We're a proud sponsor of the Taking Action Against Domestic Violence Awareness campaign. Domestic violence is a national problem that impacts our communities, neighbors, co-workers, friends, and family members, including right here in Tampa Bay. In the United States, 1 in every 4 women and 1 in every 7 men have experienced severe physical violence from an intimate partner, and each year, more than 15 million children witness violence in homes. Dealing with the consequences of domestic violence in our society is an enormous challenge. We believe Verizon's network and technologies and our people can be part of the solution. We focus on funding organizations that support victims and survivors of domestic violence and those that strive to prevent it. For more information on how we give back, please visit our website. Together, we can make a difference.
More than 28,000 cases of domestic violence were reported in the Bay Area last year. The wheel of power and control reveals the common threads in all of them. Of the 8 sections, investigators say this one is most misunderstood. Experts say the minimizing, denying, and blaming is what creates the shift of power in any DV relationship. Experts say the repeated exposure creates self-doubt in victims and keeps them from reporting the abusive situation to anyone in authority in the first place. To see the full wheel, visit abcactionnews.com/DV.
Welcome back. You're watching Taking Action Against Domestic Violence, coming to you for our 9th year in a row. Once again, we want to remind you the statewide domestic violence hotline can be seen along the bottom of your screen. Experts are standing by 24/7 to speak with anyone who may need help, male or female, young or old. That number, 1-800-500-1119. Experts say domestic violence awareness in schools is so important, especially among teenagers and young adults when they're starting their very first serious dating relationship. That's because a child growing up in an abusive home has a very different view of what's normal or healthy. In Florida, public schools are required by law to address the issue of dating violence. All of our state-certified domestic violence centers have programs that can be shared in schools and colleges. To learn more about the prevention and early intervention programs in your community, visit abcactionnews.com/DV and click on your local domestic violence center. We've got a county-by-county listing on that page. And one thing that's really inspired us, seeing teenagers get even more involved in domestic violence awareness. I want you to take a look at these Lecanto High School students. They've formed a club called Colors for Casa, raising more than $10,000 in the last 4 years for Casa in Citrus County. 150 runners turned out to their 2K and 5K races just this summer. As you can see in the t-shirts they sold, they're bold in their approach. The t-shirts say, quote, "It's a violation of the bro code to hit your girlfriend. That is never okay, ever." Lisette?
And our next hero was left in the dirt to die by her high school sweetheart. She says what her ex-boyfriend didn't realize is that she was a seed about to bloom. Giving up was not an option for this young woman who doctors have called a walking miracle.
It's the love story that captured the nation's attention. Melissa Dome, the survivor of one of the Bay Area's most horrific domestic violence cases, falling in love with the first responder who helped save her life. Their love story captivating millions more on their wedding day. 5 years, 1 month, 8 days after the first encounter.
And interviews in Japan, Germany, the UK, Australia, down in South America.
This year featured in People magazine, their country wedding in March made possible by the dressmaker, wedding planner, photographer, cake maker, and more, donating time or services. And among the guests, first responders from the worst day of her life, therefore the best day.
I mean, I have shared my story across the world of our marriage, but the reason I do it is because it's not about the marriage and the love and the wedding. It's about domestic violence awareness and prevention. While I have your attention with this unbelievable love story, I'm going to educate you about the warning signs and the dangers of domestic violence.
Melissa is now a college graduate with a business degree. She's a public speaker and a full-time advocate with the nonprofit Hands Across the Bay. Her boss, the mentor who helped heal her heart.
It never gets easy to hear that story. I know the story, I've heard it a million times, but it never gets easier to hear it.
Definitely, I know God saved me. And the reason I know this is I felt it.
She means it literally. And this is the part of Melissa's story that you don't know. She describes the first of 3 miracles happening on January 24th, 2012, the night her high school sweetheart stabbed her 32 times outside her house.
As he walked away with that knife in his hand, I knew that he was going to run me over. I felt that that's how he was going to finish the situation and kill me. Was I was laying in the road, I had no more strength and no more blood to get up and run away. I was pretty much dying at that moment. And I told God, I said, he's going to run me over. Lord, you have to get me out of this road. And at that moment, I was able to stand up and I felt myself walking.
Walking with a broken skull, facial nerves severed, and massive hemorrhaging requiring 12 units of blood transfusions at the hospital.
And I know 100% that it was angels that were carrying me. There is no way I could have walked. I remember feeling like, how is this happening? I was kind of just being drifted right along, and I landed in the dirt out of the road, and at that moment I could not move a muscle.
In this picture, the blood print marks the spot across the street where she collapsed, behind her neighbor's concrete post.
I could not move, and his truck just drove away quietly and wasn't able to run me over, clearly. And I know that with God giving me that angel to get me out of the road, that was the first sign that he was there with me.
Deeply personal, these are intense spiritual moments that Melissa has shared with me only in private until now, opening up about the miracles, she says, that changed her life.
I could not move, I could not scream, and nobody was around. The only thing I had the strength to do was to pray. And I first prayed over and over for God to save my life. Please just, I cannot die out here. I was taking my last breath. I could feel myself dying, I could feel myself drifting, and in that moment I said, Lord, if this is your will, please forgive me for my sins and take me to heaven. Just at that moment, police officer shined her light on me.
The second miracle happening then, she says. Her voice box stabbed. Melissa spoke 4 lines.
I am Melissa Dome. I'm 20 years old. Robert Burton did this to me. He left in a red Ford Ranger pickup truck. I was able to give all of this information to the officer.
Next on the scene was the ambulance carrying first responder Cameron Hill.
He was the firefighter that set up the landing zone for the helicopter and helped load me into it. And it's truly our real-life love story.
9 months after the rescue, Melissa met her first responder at this charity event for the Haven Domestic Violence Center. Organizers surprised her with the chance to thank her first responders in person. She did, followed by visits to their fire station with more thank yous again and again and again. A fairy tale love story, yes, but not the miracle she speaks of.
I was resuscitated for 3 hours straight. I flatlined 4 times, so they just kept bringing me back. They said if I wasn't giving up, neither was he. But they knew on the x-ray that my larynx was stabbed. They saw from the x-ray a puncture wound in my voice box. So they did not know, am I ever going to speak again? And is my voice ever going to be there? They actually did not have hope.
She says the third miracle happened in the operating room the next day.
That first day, I was not stabilized enough. So the next day, January 25th, they took me in to have exploration of my neck surgery to heal my larynx, or repair my larynx. And in that moment, they opened me up. I did not have this second scar all the way down. I mean, there was a stab wound here and here and here, but this wound, or this scar, was from the surgery to save my larynx. But when the doctors got inside, there was no damage to be found. So I know that God saved my voice for me to deliver this message. There is no way around these miracles. I have believed in these miracles. I have lived these miracles. And you know, people can think whatever they think, but it's real and true.
So where does the love story go from here?
How nice.
My family and I took a road trip to North Carolina to find out.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice
It's so nice to meet you too.
I'm
Welcome.
Lisa.
That's Murphy, North Carolina. This sweet spot, population 1645, is home to their babies,
Can you do FaceTime?
alpacas.
There she is! Oh my God!
The soft, docile animals at Cobb Creek Cabins are providing the next chapter of this love story.
Say hi to Mama.
Farmer Veronica T. is their mentor and alpaca sitter to their 3 boys, Trigger, Handsome Devil, and Buckshot. The girl is Bing Cherry. She's due in December, and Cameron and Melissa will name her baby Sugar Plum.
We're just everyday people. We are a husband and wife, just as anybody else, newlyweds, getting married, figuring out our lives, figuring out our future together.
Their dream? To build an alpaca farm like this at home in Pasco County. A farm with therapeutic animals to help victims and first responders heal from post-traumatic stress. A farm with a country store like this, where survivors are the artists and the poets. A dream already in progress with furry friends and fierce faith fueling the journey.
And right now, Melissa is only hours away from becoming an international public speaker. She's presenting in Winnipeg, Canada tomorrow, her first domestic violence awareness presentation outside the U.S. Here at home, if you would like to invite Melissa to speak at your school, your civic group, or your company, you can make your request online. Visit handsacrossthebay.org, click on the Contact Us tab, and the speaker request.
Now I want to introduce you to an amazing group of people who have taken awareness to a whole new level. They've single-handedly put life-saving information into the hands of tens of thousands of people, and that's not even their day job.
One poster at a time, for the last 6 years, silent superheroes have helped deliver our message of taking action against domestic violence. One photo at a time, Postcard Mania's 200 hardworking employees in Clearwater have been there every step of the way. One postcard at a time, with these big wheels turning and bright lights flashing, this generous marketing company's monster printer helps change lives. It's one of only a handful in the world, allowing Postcard Mania to donate 3 million print pieces of marketing materials to local nonprofits. Since 2011, donating over 40,000 postcards alone to taking action against domestic violence. Local advocates use them year-round because of Side B. The postcards show a map of where state-certified DV centers serve each county, from Citrus to Sarasota. Or it includes this image, the Wheel of Power and Control, which shows the warning signs and layers of domestic violence.
Okay, if you're standing over there and you're wearing purple, please come over here.
And the faces behind all that generosity? People who walk the walk and talk the talk.
If we can just do a little part, it just makes us feel really good.
Postcard Mania's founder and CEO, Joy Genduza, is one of many silent heroes.
Oh, we're totally excited about doing it every single year, and we get into putting on purple, and we're excited to wave at you guys in the photo, and you know, it makes the staff feel really good to be part of something that's helpful.
If you're wearing a dress, hold your dress.
Using her team's creative talents and enthusiasm, these self-proclaimed maniacs, a play on words in their Postcard Mania family, wear purple in support of our campaign. They are proof positive. Everyone can do something to help raise awareness of domestic violence and support the work of local DV centers.
everybody can do something. You know, you can call the number and see how you can help. What type of volunteer work can you do? Even if you donate a day, a month of your time, it's something that you can do.
Hi everyone, I'm coming to you from our studios right here at ABC Action News.
During this recent company meeting, we joined the Maniacs on their home turf.
Every year, we look forward to the group picture you send us with all of you wearing purple. It's just awesome. Teamwork makes the dream work, and you are definitely part of our team.
Honoring these everyday heroes, placing life-saving information in the hands of tens of thousands of victims.
And we speak for the entire company when we tell you that it is an honor over the last 9 years to shine a light on domestic violence and to see the transformational work that all the local advocates do.
Yeah, the brave survivors who have shared their stories to help others have inspired us and so many of you to get involved.
So we've devoted our broadcast once again to celebrating the everyday heroes rising to the occasion.
And to all of you who help make our community better, you inspire us. So thank you so much for all you do.
Good night, everybody.